once we've sort of got them into the building, you mentioned sometimes they look around and they think, actually, I can't see any other female leaders, or I can't see a female boss, and they just go. What is there anything tangible that the companies can do that want to change the dial, they want to move it, and they want to have a more diverse and inclusive workplace? What can they actually do? Is there any sort of tactics you think, do you know what, this is what you should be doing?
It's really easy and it's quite cheap. It's just called listening, you know, and providing places for them to share their experience as a woman in tech. So whether or not that's through what we used to call, back in my bank days, skip level lunches, whether or not they want to channel that through a Women in Tech network, anywhere where the experiences, the lived experience of women in technology within the organisation can be funneled and had a look at, so that we can pick up some themes of what would make it better. But what sometimes happens is companies will do something in an ivory tower and go, that's what it needs. We'll just create a Women in Tech network and that will fix everything, but it won't. The Women in Tech network is there as a mechanism to find out what's going on, like at the coalface for those women. And then that is collectively fed up. Then we say, okay, so if that particular aspect is a barrier, what can we do to remove that barrier? You know, why is it that we've got women in this certain area of the business or in tech that are feeling like this? What's going on there? So it involves a little bit more time and dedication. But the thing is, if you can get it right, those women become advocates for your business, right? You look for external opportunities, and there's always a bit of a, is that the right thing to do? You know, I talk to people and I'm like, God, your women are great. We want to, interview them and put their profiles on WeAreTech Women, be a great profile for them. And they're like, oh, well, if you put them all out there, people will come and steal them. And I'm like, well, if you're looking after your staff, they're not up for being stolen, you know? So I think investing in your women, giving them opportunity, but And again, a lot of people think the silver bullet there is, let's put in a mentoring program. And mentoring has its place, but it's not the silver bullet. What we need is more sponsorship. So if, for example, if I was a woman in tech and you was one of the senior leaders there, how great would it be for us to have a conversation where I could articulate what I'm good at, what my aspirations are, where I want to go with my career, and then you demonstrate allyship by taking that conversation into somewhere where I'm not, and opening a door of opportunity for me. So that sponsorship, that advocacy is what we need. And we won't get that unless we find a mechanism for you and I to have a conversation, or you find a way for that information to flow towards you so that you can do that.
Talking of conversations, I work with a lot of channel firms, one in particular who I won't name, but I did tell you off air, who it was, a global security company, a vendor, has got a reputation for probably one of the worst gender pay gaps in the channel, I think.
Yeah.
What can be done about that, apart from calling it out? Because there's females working there that just seem to be stuck and they just think, well, I need to go and get another job. But they do enjoy working there.
It's hard. I think it's not hard for the company, because that's, if they're FTSE 100, right, they'll be publishing that data like everyone has to do. So it's out there. It's out there in the public domain how bad their pay gap is. I would think, even from a recruiter's standpoint, and I know from your guys, you've got the role, you need to place the role and stuff like that, but there has to be some element of pushback to that company to say, look, if you want a balanced slate of applicants and stuff like that, people are going to Google you and your pay gap is this, right? So they can't expect you to do magic in terms of getting that balanced slate, because nowadays women will look things like that up. We're interested what the pay gap is of the company. We're interested in the ethics of that company. Are they sustainable? Where are they investing? How many women on their board? How are you going to support my career? What your maternity, paternity policies are? What do you do when I'm going through my menopause? We're interested in that stuff. So they can't get away with it. So the company needs a massive cultural change, if they're gonna attract women into that organisation. And I think I said to you earlier on, it's hard. I mean, I've been at an organisation where I absolutely loved the job, I loved the work, but just was not getting the recognition that I needed. So I voted with my feet.
And on that point, what advice would you give to women that are in that situation? Is it worth fighting internally and trying to be an advocate internally and think, right, I'm going to be a force for change, or actually just think, do you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go and find another company.
That pay gap doesn't reflect one woman, right? That pay gap goes across the firms. To me, there's a deep cultural issue there. Yeah. As to how they see a woman's worth and what they pay her. So my advice to those women is there are, as we said, whether it's 17% of women in tech, whether it's 29%, there is still a massive shortage of women in the industry. They're very lucrative. That's what I tell my ladies at Women in We Are Tech Women. They're very lucrative. They've got a wonderful skill set. Believe me, there are people looking to rehire you. That will pay you what you're worth.
Absolutely. Now, on Wednesday,
yes,
there is a proposed change to the tax rules that are disproportionately about female founders, angel investors. Now, you're campaigning against this to protect women and startups from this change, aren't you? So, what do you think is going to happen on Wednesday?
Well, I've helped. So there was so basically what happened on January the 31st, a new piece of legislation came in that basically said unless you had 170k in assets, you could not angel invest in a business.
Right.
So we talked about pay gap earlier on. So this meant that of the 15.6 working women in the UK, only 76,000 of them would meet that new threshold to invest in a business, right? So we know that women invest in other women businesses. We know that women invest in diverse businesses. So you basically cut off the hands of all those potential investors because we don't have 170 in assets.
Why would they want to change it then?
Don't know.
What was the point?
You have to question who's in the room. I'm not quite sure what was actually behind it, whether it was regulation or what it was, but they made this change and literally it was like a swathe of investors, women's group, coalitions, everyone in the startup SME industry was up in arms. So you had lots of different kind of campaigns that were kicked off by different groups. And I kind of got involved. We did a list with HSBC last year where we celebrated 20 incredible female entrepreneurs that all had purpose-led businesses, so like businesses with impact. And it was the week of our celebration, the start of the year, that this news kind of broke. And this big WhatsApp group set up with everyone involved in the sector. So I've said, look, female investing and stuff, there are people that have been doing it a long time, know the nuts and bolts of this stuff, but I'll support you. So whether that's trying to get, bigger voices to campaign with them. So I've kind of been part of that.
What do you think is going to happen on Wednesday?
Well, news has it, word on the street, that the Chancellor's going to reverse the legislation.
Really?
And put it back to 100k, which again means that all of those that previously didn't meet the old threshold will now be able to invest. But I think from my perspective, it's been one of the fastest legislation reverses. I mean, it only came in on the 31st of January and they're already. So fingers crossed, spring statement, as I say, we can't celebrate till the check's cleared, but it's in enough news outlets that is being reversed. And do you know something? I think it's the confidence that will give women as well, that we haven't just got to lie down and take some of this stuff. When the government, and again, not often I credit our government, but when they realise they're wrong on this particular one, they've acted quite quickly. But what's really important going forward is that we have the right women in those rooms, because I'm sure had we had a woman in that room, they would have said, hold on, this isn't going to work. It doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for ethnic minorities, and before they kind of put this legislation through. But I think there is a big feeling, if it goes through on Wednesday like we're predicting that it is, and the lady's name is Emma Wright and Sarah King, and she's a lawyer, Emma Wright, so she's at Harbottle and Sarah King's at Obu Invest. These two ladies, I think, watch this space, because there's lots of other things that we need to change around that kind of female investor SME space.
You talked about confidence there, and confidence can come in different forms, and people often ask me about imposter syndrome. I'm not quite ready for the job, or I'm not quite sure if I should apply for this role, and if I got the job I probably don't think I'd do a very good job of it. What's your advice, or what advice can you offer someone that's got imposter syndrome, that's thinking these things and isn't acting?
Okay, quick question back to you. Have you ever felt like an imposter? Have you ever walked in a room and not felt that you knew enough, or other people in there perhaps knew a little bit more than you, or have you ever felt like that? I'll tell you what I'm asking you in a sec.
Not really.
See,
I don't think so.
Interesting. That's so interesting. Because, I'll tell you for why, before I answer your question. I did... I was put to do a speaking event, so I do lots of kind of public speaking around corporates, basically telling women that they own their careers, right? So don't wait for your boss to do stuff for you. There's a lot kind of that you can do. But I've been booked to do this particular event, and it was supposed to be 20 women in the room, and when I turned up, it's 20 men, right? So I'm there to talk to them about networking, personal brand, imposter syndrome, and all the rest of it. And I had to literally flip my conversation to talk to them about, look, if you're trying to get this fantastic woman, give her more responsibility, you know, promote her, and she's telling you no, there could be valid reason, but it could be our own imposter syndrome kind of getting in the way. So I explained imposter syndrome, how it surfaces, and how it can hold women back. And afterwards, about 5 of the guys that in that room, because it was 20 men that I turned up to, came and said to me, I recognise that imposter syndrome. I felt like that before. And it was such an eye-opener to me, because we think this confidence thing and imposter syndrome is just another one of the many women's issues. But actually, I truly believe that it affects men and women.
Because no one even knew, I didn't even know what that term meant. When someone said to me imposter, I didn't even, they've been talking about it for a few years, but it's only the last 2 or 3 years people even mentioned that.
I think it was back in the 70s, it was 2 psychologists that kind of stumbled across it. And, imposter phenomenon, I think it was known as then. But, I mean, I talk to a lot of women. I mean, there's we've just had a huge database kind of clean up and stuff. There's about 85,000 women in my community, between Tech and WeAreTheCity. And every time we're designing a conference, confidence does come up in some guys. And I don't think, I think circumstances knock your confidence, right? So you think when we start off when we're little, we get up, we stand on our feet, we don't realise we're going to fall over, we put things in our mouth and realise we have to pull them out, we're going to choke. We learn as we go, but I think sometimes as women, as young girls even, get into schools, there are just certain things that knock their confidence in certain situations, and that can be kind of exacerbated as they go through life. So sometimes when you get into the corporate environment, and I don't think you notice it first off, because I remember starting my job, I was equal, right? I could do what the boys did, it didn't bother me and stuff. It's only when I become more senior, I started to see the politics at play. And actually, why did they hire someone in the same job as me, and they were paying him 20 grand more than what I was earning? Why?
That's right.
Why, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Why? And that was a true story. Was it because he was a grad and I wasn't at that particular point? But we'll come on to that. But do you know what I mean? But what was the difference between the two of us? So I think.
And be honest. What do you at the time you thought it's just a female, male? You don't.
Do you know what?
Do you not really know now?
I've honestly, because of my own kind of insecurities about not going to university, not going to college as when I was younger, I absolutely thought that's why he's got it, because he's got a degree and stuff like that. But he was actually quite useless at his job. Nice fella, but just not that great at his job. Whereas I was quite good at my job, but I found out how much he'd been employed in, which was 20 grand difference. And I felt really disgruntled. And then I thought, well, you can't help, again, things that contribute to the knock in your confidence. Why didn't I get promoted? Why is somebody getting paid more than me? Why is it when I articulate my ideas, they're stolen by other people and people run with them, and I don't get the credit for it? Why is it that I've worked 7 hours, above and beyond, over the last couple of days to get this report over the line, and not once was I thanked? It's your job, yeah, but it's my job to make someone else look good. So there's all these kind of things that knock your confidence, and I think the more they happen, the worse that gets. But there's a new wave of women. When they come to our that's when we do our conferences. It isn't about fixing women, right? This isn't let's fix the women. It's just the way that cultures are within some firms over a period of time. Just makes women not be able to see where their future is within that organisation.